Thank you, General Saltzman. I want to thank all three of you for your testimony. As I said in my opening statement last week, the FBI arrested a 21-year-old Air National Guardsman. He had access to highly sensitive information that we can't even talk about in this forum. So, General Brown, I've got three questions. Number one, why did this individual have access to this classified information? Number two, how could this guardsman take this information and distribute it electronically for weeks, if not months, and nobody knew about it? And number three, do we have protections in place, because we spend a lot of money trying to protect classified information? Do we have protections in place to stop this from ever happening again?
Chairman, I appreciate the question, and let me go with the your third question first. We do have protections in place to protect classified information, and all of our members are, as they get their security clearance and then sign documents, have the process to protect the information. Obviously, in this case, this process fell apart. And so the aspect of this particular airman, for his particular job, he had access for information, but he didn't necessarily have a need to know for some of the information. And we're going through an ongoing investigation associated with that, and then also determining how he was able to distribute. So we have an ongoing investigation, and we have a process of looking at accountability, not only from a criminal standpoint for the individual, but also as we look at the organization itself. We're going to take a look at our overall processes across the Department of the Air Force. And that Secretary Austin also sent out a memo to the Department of Defense for us all to take a look at our processes, and then we'll look at how we review all of our processes across the Department of the Air Force to include a stand down on security.
So I'm going to flesh this out a little bit more. You in your opening statement said that you're oversight of 689,000 of some of the best people in the world that are under your command. How did this person even get access? Did he do it legally? Did he do it illegally? How did he have access to this information?
Chairman, he actually has, because of his duties, he has access to some aspects based on his job as a cyber administrator. He took advantage of that access, and I don't want to go into more detail, too much detail, but I can talk to you in a closed session.
We will have a closed session with the Air Force. I'm talking a little off script here, but we will, because I think there's some things we need to talk about in the SCIF, not only this, but other things. But this is very disturbing, and the fact that it happened is bad enough, and we just got to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think you're on the same page with that.
I am.
A few months ago, we saw an incursion of a Chinese spy balloon. I think Senator Murkowski would agree with me. I think it should have been shot over the Aleutians, but it wasn't. And it had the ability to gather intelligence from bases across this country. The administration put in $90 million in this budget to improve detection and assessment. I assume this question is for you, Mr. Brown. Is there a point, General Brown, I'm sorry, is there a point person within the Air Force to improve our detection and assessment of the balloon issue? Because I don't think it was the first one.
Chairman, we actually have an individual who's Kristen Baldwin, who's actually not only for detection, but we're also looking at all the other aspects of detection, tracking, and how you negate that future threats like that.
Okay, and can you tell me who that person is, or?
Yes, sir. It's Kristen Baldwin. She works in our acquisition career field. But what we've done is we have a team that's come together to take a look at all the various capabilities that we have as a department, but also outside the Department of the Air Force that are in development to figure out what the best tools are to counter threats like that in the future.
Okay. The NORTHCON commander has told us that he has additional unfunded requirements for Air Force over-the-horizon long-range expeditionary radars. We need to provide the resources, and I think this committee on both sides of the aisle wants to make sure our nation is safe, okay, and provide the resources to do that. So why has the Air Force decided to put this on the unfunded list instead of a higher priority?
Chairman, if I could.
Sure, Frank, go ahead.
You know, we have funded 2 new over-the-horizon radars in the budget. There's quite a bit of money in the budget to field those and get them in place. The money that I believe is on that list for General Van Herk is to accelerate that process on the margins. It's not a fundamental change. It just tries to move it a little bit faster.
Okay. let's talk about the industrial base because it's a concern on all the branches of the military. There was about $900 million put into last year's budget for the industrial base and supply chain issues. Can you tell me if that money has gone out the door and what kind of benefits it has provided for the Air Force?
Yeah, I think a large fraction of that money has gone out the door, but I'll have to get that for you for the record.
Okay,
There are a number of things we do with those funds, but essentially what we're trying to do is ensure that our supply chains are healthy,
yes?
identify any gaps in our supply chains that
Yep.
need to be addressed.
And does that include workforce?
Workforce in the industry.
In the industry, yes.
It can, but generally that's an indirect effect rather than a direct effect.
I got you. So I would really like to, before I turn to Susan Collins, or Senator Collins, I would really like to get information as to the money that we put in. Is it actually having an effect? Is it actually doing what we wanted to do? And this, by the way, will happen across the board for all the services. And is it actually making a difference? Because regardless of what number we put on the defense budget, if it's not being utilized in a way that makes a difference for you, then we've got to do something else.
It's fairly intensive work across the department to identify weaknesses in the industrial base and to prioritize the things that need some additional resources in ways appropriate. In the past, we've done some things in space, for example, for very selected subcontractors in space, specific technologies. There are other things we funded like casting capabilities and so on, where the return for industry isn't there to make those investments without the department's
Support.
assistance, essentially.